Yeah, we're good.
And about, what sets you apart?
Yeah, well,
Right.
not so much the coaching style, more the niche that I've carved out. Is that I had kids quite young, and I managed to maintain being quite a high level athlete while maintaining a good relationship with my children and my family. And I think that's what's missing a lot in a lot of powerlifting gyms is sometimes parents need different schedules, or you need a little bit. When I was 21, training was on at three o'clock on a Monday. You rocked up, you trained for 2 hours is what you did. Now, if someone cancels, I'm not like, you think about your total. It's like, fair enough, they got kids, they're probably sick. So, it's one of those things that I think was missing down here was that space for parents to be able to pursue strength and still be strong and train, but not feel pressure to forego their other commitments, which realistically, powerlifting should not be your life. It should be an accessory to your life. And I still meet coaches now that like you go to a party with them or you go out for dinner and they're like, my macros are here. I can't have a beer. Well, fucking, it's a party. Like, have a beer. So, and I think that's where I carved my niche was a very relaxed style of strength, and it's worked really well. So that more chill vibe rather than
Yeah, we
you
could
got to
go
be
in a
on all
couple of
the
different
time.
directions there. I want to come back around to that chilled, relaxed vibe and talk more about the swimming pool as well, because your gym's awesome. Um, but that whole yeah, right.
It's
But
very
let's talk about
very
that
unique.
super seriousness bit, like the this idea that you need to be locked in, dialed in at all times, and be hitting everything perfect. You've been around for quite a while now. How has this changed over time? Like, what's your take on it all? Because it does seem to me to be overly serious.
I mean, powerlifting's changed in a bunch of different ways, even in my involvement. I've been 12 years, but I've been in business for 10. Main source of income for 6 or 7. So, I mean, we could talk 1,000 different ways as how powerlifting has changed. And I think, in a sense of the super serious side of thing, I still don't really get that. I struggle to understand the 19, 20 year olds that are coming through and they're dedicating, probably part of the reason the
Mm-hmm.
junior dropout, they dedicate too hard too early. We've all been young. But they're dedicating their life and they're foregoing relationships and, schooling or whatever. And I've got to go to the gym. Powerlifting does not pay its bills. It just doesn't. Like, it's not, you're never going to get $100,000 a year contract. So I never understood that idea of, yeah, I want to be strong and I want to do that, but you can actually have a life as well. And if you don't have a life, the path to strength, and I can't remember who said this, and I want to say I saw it on JP's post once, was the path to strength is 10 years of moderately hard training. It's not 3 years of it's everything and then 10 years of nothing. It's train fairly hard for a very long time. I'm sure there's many different bastardized versions of that quote. And I still see it now. A new coach will come through and they'll get this super, we're the elite of the elite. And, you're training 6 days a week and you're bench pressing 4 and you're squatting 3 and macros are perfect. And they do that for 2 years and then everyone breaks or disappears. I was like, well, yeah, my guys, they rock up sometimes and sometimes they don't. And we're doing okay.
It sounds like like you make a really good point about the 10 years thing. I've been saying that forever. That like if you go from day one lifting to wanting to be world champion, minimum 10, like 10 years. It really does. You can mess the numbers around, but it seems yeah,
I think 10's
and it
decades probably reasonable.
doesn't mean that you're not good or anything like that in the interim. It just seems to take that long. And it's without it,
And I think,
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's cool. It's
sorry, you go.
Tasmania's a long way
There's a bit of
away.
a delay, so I'm cutting you
Uh,
off.
um, so like, so I'll
I don't
take you
think
through a guy
that's how the
like
internet
Easton
works,
Schuster, who
but sure.
won last year, 93 kilos in Austin. He won the shirted, the single play. He benched 345. That was 10 years after his first Worlds. He did Worlds as a sub junior in his first year of competing because, it's not that hard to qualify as a sub junior to go to Worlds. And he did 10 years of competing before he won. and he had some of the best coaching in the world. He was around the best lifters going around. He had like an almost ideal run for a newbie to come in and be coached by a world champion, to be constantly around world champion bench presses. And it took him 10 years. I'm going, why people think they can shortcut that system or that natural biological stuff is just beyond me. But it's fun to watch him try.
It's one of those things I've seen, and every now and then you'll get a coach that gets an outlier or something. But even with that, what they never tell you in that story. So I've seen, and there's a few athletes recently that they appear to just have popped up powerlifting, right? Like all of a sudden, 2-3 years in, they're champions.
Yeah.
But they don't show you that 10 years ago they were CrossFit champion, or before that they were bodybuilding for 10 years, or they never show you that side of it. I've only been powerlifting for 2 years. Yeah, but you lived in a gym for 15.
Yep.
It's all that other stuff that adds up. And I mean, you can see it in my personal journey. First time I bench pressed in competition was 152.5 kilos. I was a young buck, whatever. That's not bad, particularly back when powerlifting was a baby sport, raw,
anything above 140,
and in 10 years.
It's a big bench, no matter who it is.
Correct. And I would say that's the standard big bench is 3 blue plates. But either way, I was like, well, fuck yeah, look at me go. And then progressively, it took me 10 years of competing, and I benched 205 in comp. That is 52.5 kilos, but that is 5 kilos a year, right? Now, you tell someone that's just started that they're going to gain 5 kilos a year, they're going to be like, what? But then you say, yeah, but that's 205 kilos, right? Like that's suddenly you're benching 200 because 5 kilos over 10 years is 50 kilos. And that just is what it is. It's the process. And that's not linear either, because there's going to be that period of time. I'm sure you've experienced this in your career or coaching where there's 1 year where you don't hit your totals and you are lower and you bomb out happens. Or whatever, because it's been a bad year.
And that's what life happens.
You have kids, you get divorced, whatever.
I feel bad for the people that have that bad year, that have a few life things. They enjoy powerlifting up until something goes wrong in their personal life. They get a divorce, change jobs, have some health problems, and they stop there. They never keep going in whatever form. So they never have that realization that sometimes the year after is like a breakout year, or 3 years down the track, there's some joy and there's a whole lot of gold waiting for you. But it's I think you only find out that whole the strength journey is not linear if you stay in it long enough for it to become not linear.
I think it's a really good segue to part of what I think makes my gym so particularly unique is I've had clients that have been around for that long. They've been around for 10 years.
Phil. I love
Phil Menzies, as you know, is a great example of that. Phil is he just recently got an all-time total PB at 57. It's amazing for 32 years of lifting, like awesome. Genuinely phenomenal. He's about to get his tattoo, and we got a tattooist that trains at the gym. He's getting the Collingwood Magpie deadlifting 500 because he's so just ecstatic. 500 was a dream for him. So now it's the 200 squat and all that stuff. But he's the perfect example because only a year ago he got really sick before, I want to say World. Yeah, sorry. Dog, stop it. He got really sick before Worlds. He actually weighed in light. He had to fill himself up with water to make his weight class. Made 1 squat, 1 bench, 1 deadlift. Shit. Like 50 kilos off his best total. Then the next year, bang. Because he's done all that work, he just got really sick. And there's been enough of our guys now when life hits, I can pull out an example and I can be like, yeah, but this is what happened to Phil, or this is what happened here. So keep coming. We'll drop the volume. We'll drop the intensity. We'll tread water for however long that this, what I would refer to as a situational crisis is burning. And then afterwards we'll go again. So the retention rate for most of my athletes is pretty good when life hits, but it never used to be. because there were no examples to give them
Okay.
of why they should. And I would agree with you. There's lots of people that stop.
No, I was just saying, yeah, like that's
Sorry, you
a
go.
really good point you make, that, the not having examples. It's really interesting.
And the only way you can get those examples is, again, I've owned a gym for 10 years. Like, a lot happens in that time that you can draw back on and go, yeah, well, I've got an example as to why you should. If you don't have that there, you don't have that data. It doesn't mean anything if you pull up an article of someone over in Finland that had the same experience, but there's someone they know that they've rubbed shoulders with. It hits home a bit harder. And there's a few people in the gym at the moment. I mean, I got 100 clients now, so there's lots of people. At any given time, there's a fire somewhere in someone's life because it's that many people. And there's a few at the moment that have stuff going on, and it's about, well, just we'll keep you moving in this time. We're not chasing PBs. We're not going to work you hard, but we're going to keep you moving. So when life settles down, which it will, it always does, bang, we're ready to go. We haven't gone backwards. We've
So
just
tell me then,
plateaued.
how do you speak to those athletes when they're going through stuff? Like, how do you approach the situation, both generally and specifically?
Well, again, my background's quite unique as to how I got into powerlifting. So you would know a lot about my journey, but basically, I started as an aged care worker, and then a mental health worker, and a disability worker, and all those things. And I was into lifting myself, and I was like, why is there not a place for different people to congregate and to train? And whether that is Phil who's blind, or we've got para benches for disabled people, or whatever, but more people with brains that work like mine, where they're a little bit off center, to congregate and be themselves. So the way that I would talk to my clients, I would very rarely recommend people do, because I know my clients quite intimately because of the type of gym that we have. So generally, I would suggest that you ask if they want to talk about it, and then engage respectfully in mental health first aid comprehension type talk. My guys, we just do that while we train. It's basically, it's iron therapy for us. Most of our guys always have some sort of mental health complication, and we're unwinding. It'd be fascinating to do like a full video of like a couple of sessions throughout a day and show the difference of someone coming in the gym versus leaving the gym. So they're always lighter. They come in and they're happier, they're lighter, they're relieved. But that's the business model that I've worked, is holistic health through strength training. So for me personally, it's each individual client. We just chat shit until they feel better.
And how does movement play a role in that? Like, those conversations? Because like I'm thinking about in terms of how I do stuff. Like I think we're very similar over the years, because I came in it from counselling and chaplaincy, and seeing how people moving better and lifting weights, they had better mental health outcomes, and then the improved mental health made them stronger and all that kind of stuff. So how do you actually incorporate movement into those kind of discussions or chats? Yeah.
I would say I implement the chats into the movement. So I'd say it's a bit inverted for us. You're here my job is to make you squat, improve your squat, whatever. So that's what we're here to do. But while we're doing that, what's eating at you? And as they warm up their body, endorphins start to release, everything feels lighter, they get it out. And that's probably the easiest way to explain it. Because I have quite a strong interpersonal relationship with my clients. So we have what I call the dickhead clause in my contract, which is basically a way of, I'm established enough now. Yeah, the dickhead clause. It's just listed. If you try to ambush marketing, offensive, abusive, refuse to share equipment, whatever. There's like all these things that to me implement a gym dickhead. But I'm established enough now. I don't work with people I don't want to work with. So someone that I'm not going to be able to help through that time, you learn pretty quick whether or not you're compatible with someone in a gym environment. So they start training. I know I'm compatible with them, and we just kind of talk. and it's a safe space. And because it's mostly a one-on-one training environment, they also feel really safe to get that out without persecution of the wider community. So really, to me, the movement is just, it feels good to move. And more often than not, people, when they're super stressed in the very early days, they often come in and they're stronger, and that actually lifts them through it for a little bit. Obviously, as you stay stressed for longer, it gets worse. But that little bit of, fuck yeah.
Can be quite useful at times.
Yeah. And just if you can get to them early enough, they know that actually their body is separate too, and you know, I'm still whatever, still strong. The hard thing is if you go too far, and someone like myself who currently can't train very efficiently, when you suddenly have this massive connection between feeling mentally well and feeling physically well, and you're not physically well, it can detrimentally affect your mental health. Because obviously when I can't train well, my personal well-being does suffer, because what do you mean I can only bench 170 today? That's terrible. So there is negative sides to that, but I'm a particularly complex human being.
I'm envisioning you midway through a session a couple of times in your career, not breaking a person, but you ask really good questions. So I'm imagining you asking so many good questions mid-workout that you could probably dissolve a workout into a therapy session pretty quickly.
It's something that you've got to try very hard not to do, because it can happen. And every now and then, my outsider, Ella Danielle Crocom, she does this a lot as well. Sometimes a client will come in and they are that fragile because of the clients that we work with, that you're not training today, you're going to go for a walk. You go for a walk together, you move, and they just unload on you. So we did do through the gym, we've done the mental health first aid, we've got mental health counselors in the gym that are separate to the coaches, and we've done all that because that's the environment we push. But you do need to try and get enough out of them so that they feel better for sharing before it divulges into, no, you're here to squat, you still got to squat or whatever, get it done. And quite often I find myself keeping the pacing is the main thing. My long-standing clients, most of them don't really need that much technical input outside of the 6-8 weeks to prep. What they need is someone to talk to while they train.
It's really interesting. I know from personal experience, a couple of times I've asked one question too many, or a really good question, and I haven't realized how good the question is for them, and it'll be, all right, let's leave everything now, let's go for coffee, we're done. But I think it's also
and that's one of those things.
I think that's one of those, what we were talking about early on about stress being stress, and realizing that probably the stress load that they've taken on for that training session, because they've got the output of squatting or benching or deadlifting heavy, but also they've got that emotional output of explaining and processing feelings, that now I've given them a max effort workout just about, because we're processing at the same time. So honoring that tricky little balance in there, knowing that it needs to be dealt with in order to be able to move better, and that moving better helps release it, but also it's a high calorie exercise. Processing feelings takes a lot of stress to get through.
There's two things. I actually had a conversation. There's a group of ladies that train with me at the moment that just started training. They're from a walking club, and one of them was training with me, and she's invited a friend. What lovely. And that one of them today was making noises when they train, and I referenced, you'll always find something different in different people. It's fascinating how they're doing the same thing, but they respond differently. And I just threw out there that, well, at least one of you hasn't cried yet, right? And that got them talking about, what do you mean? And I was like, well, often what you'll find, and that's literally spoke about this at 12 o'clock today, was that someone comes in here and they're emotionally really stressed, but they're holding it together. And then suddenly they're now physically stressed and their energy levels are dropping, and you can't hold it in anymore because you're using so much of your energy to hold it together. Bang, you're gone. And then they cry, and that's okay. Like, we've had plenty of people have a little breakdown in the gym, and they have a little cry, and you either keep moving on or they go, you go for a walk, whatever, it happens. And I think being able to do that, but then come back the next day is the merit of the sort of place that you can build. Because, if I have a breakdown and have a little cry in, my doctor's office in the waiting room, probably going to swap doctors, right? Or it's just an example. So if people have a breakdown in your gym, have a cry in front of people, but come back the next week, you've done something right because they felt protected and safe at that time of crisis.
Deep, lasting connections then as well, doesn't it? Like we tend to connect over the negative things, not so much the positives, and so having that not a negative emotion, is it? But having an emotional connection at a time like that is more powerful than 5 or 6 really great training sessions where they're hitting PRs.
Well, I also think it helps you as a coach if you have the emotional understanding and the empathy to take that on board. It helps you know how they're going to handle their prep and how they're going to handle a competition. Because if you can start to see their emotional breaking point and things like that, not that you should ever deliberately try to break them, but you can start to see those precursors outside of data. So obviously I get my program in, I look at all their notes, I train with them 5 times a week, and I can see the physical improvements or where the fatigue is hitting. But if I also know them on an emotional level and I can see that something's not quite right, I can pull a bit of that intensity out to limp them through. But if I'm only going off online coaching where it's just data in a spreadsheet, I don't have that connection and I break them in the prep. So I think knowing that about your client, it's hard to learn, and I think you can probably only do it if you're the right type of person or have the appropriate training background. But if you can have it, it is a very, very powerful weapon to get the most out of a prep and a comp from particularly
I like that you said if you have the right type of training
athlete.
and you have definitely all the right types of training and experience as well. So you've been able to play with a lot. If you don't have that training, how do you get it? Or how would you advise getting it? Where do you start?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can seek it out. So I recommend every coach should have at least the mental health first aid. Obviously, you should have your physical first aid. You should have someone drops and has a heart attack. You know how to do compressions, call an ambulance, all that stuff. We've got a defib on site, all those things that you should have. But there is a course that we did, and we've got what is called emotional wellbeing advisors. That's what we call them, which are separate to the 2 coaches. The 2 coaches have it as well. But if you're not comfortable talking to your coach, we've got these people. But I think all coaches should sit that. It's a 2-day course. It does incur a cost, but it teaches you how to approach these conversations, warning signs to look out for, and particularly in the sport that we do that does attract, let's be real, special people, unique people, whatever you want to call us. It attracts those people. It's warning signs to look out for pharmaceutical abuse or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, emotional abuse. You get all those. How to talk to someone who might be suicidal. How to talk to someone who's going through a psychotic episode. The key phrases and stuff to use was not going to escalate, but it also isn't going to undermine, because a lot of the time people will be like, oh, don't kill yourself. That's not always the way to approach it, right? And it also gives you the arsenal to then refer on to other services. So I think all coaches should have that. I had an argument with one of my daughter's coaches not that long ago. And I'll be very careful here not to drop too many hints of names or anything, because it is complicated. But basically, I brought them some stuff that was happening at home across split households of like, hey, a couple of things to be aware of. This is what we're dealing with. I thought you should know. And that coach freaked out. I don't need to know this stuff. You're bringing me personal stuff. This, whatever. I don't think I can work with you or your daughter anymore. And then said, would your clients bring you this? I was like, yeah, I want to know this stuff. My 8-year-old child spends as much time with you as anybody else. You should want to know the signs of things to look out for, because if you're not paying attention, a little girl that trains with you could be being abused and you haven't noticed and you haven't referred on. And eventually we will, when my daughter's a bit older, move away from this person. But it was just this mind-blowing, the coach was not interested. And to me, you've got to be interested in the emotional well-being of your athlete or you're never going to have a good relationship with them. And so, yeah, that would be my starting point. Mental health first aid is the primary one. And then there's a bunch of other stuff you can do depending on how you want to specialize. You can go into behavioral analysis training. You can go into autism-specific stuff. You could go into physical disabilities, whatever, but they're all individual things to seek out separate to that.
If you were new to this area, where would you start? Like, with what organizations would you start with to find these things?
What is the mental health first aid called?
It was when
it's just called the mental health first aid course. So there's that. I would literally type into Google. Yeah. I worked with. I've forgotten their name because I'm on my phone. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. There is a really cool thing. A client of mine, giant man, 6'9" or something. Tom was his name. He runs gigantic human. He runs a program which basically sponsors or finds grants for sporting clubs to get mental health first aid officers into clubs.
Yep.
So you can find stuff like that, and I'll send you those resources later. So basically, they get the funding, they give it to the soccer club to get 5 or 6 people through the mental health first aid. So then that club now has mental health agents in the community. That also then affects the community as a whole because those people live at home. They have other community groups, and there's someone that's, Barbara's not 100%. Normal people aren't going to notice, but this officer now did. So there's those sort of things. I would literally just Google it because they run them at your local library or whatever once every 6 months. So it's really easy to get into them. You just got to pay, I think it's like $300, $400. And it counts as professional development anyway. But yeah, there's not enough of them in gyms and or sporting clubs. So that would be my start. And then if you like that, I work a lot with autistic people as well on the NDIS. I really liked a thing called applied behavior analysis, which I don't know if that's still what it's called. It was years ago, which was basically talking about motivation and consequence for people who think differently to you. So motivation for you or me might be, I want to bench 200. I want to be remembered. I want to win a lot of money, whatever. That's not always motivation for someone whose brain works differently to yours. So if you're working particularly with complex autism, their motivation might be, but you can, fucking dogs, you can play video games better if you're fitter. So they do their fitness training so they can, whatever their personal motivator is. Same as consequence. Consequence for you or me might be prison, right? We do something wrong, we go to prison. Some people that's not a consequence for, but not being able to get their cigarettes is. So that's once you know what motivates someone and what consequences are for someone, you can tailor a behavioral plan for them really, really strongly.
That's good stuff. I really, I think finding those individual motivators, at least for me, and the kind of work that I do, like that ends up being, it's almost like the core work for me is going, all right, well, why would you turn up? What's important? And so we're always just finding out in every conversation what's the most important thing right now, and comparing it to what's the most important thing just generally in the person's life. And if we can keep the conversations in that space, most of the time I find we have a pretty joyful, easy run. And I want to say probably not easy, more simple than easy, because it's a bit of work. You have to process some stuff, but so we keep it down those paths. And I feel like that way powerlifting fits into a big overall picture. It's rather than, like you said before, that idea that powerlifting is everything and we try and fit everything into powerlifting. think powerlifting fits into a person's life and should be additive. It should be, if it's not making you better, why are you doing it? You know?
And that's so I think that the hard thing when you're talking about motivators too is, particularly when you're talking about aging athletes or whatever, is they'll ebb and flow because different I mean, you know this. You're not 21 anymore. You know what motivates you at 21 is different. And I also think it's really hard for some people, most people, not very good at self-actualization, as I'm sure you know. So a lot of the time, they don't know what their motivator is. And it's really hard to discover because some people you can ask what motivates you and they will give you a straight answer and they're right. And other times people will blank, have no idea. Same as when you ask someone what their goals are and they're like, I say this all the time, and they're like, I just want to feel better. Like, that's great, but feelings lie and they change. So what can we measure? Like, give me a measurement on how we're going to assess.
Because my question every time to that is, okay, let's define that. What do you mean by feeling better? Like, give me something really precise so that
correct. Give me a measurement.
That we know that, you know. But when we define something vaguely, I want to feel better. I go, cool. So does that mean you still want to feel like shit, but just a better form of shit than what you feel now? Or do you actually want to feel good? Like, what do you want to do with that?
Well, exactly. Like, and I mean, feelings will lie because some days I wake up and I don't feel good. That doesn't mean I'm in a bad place. I'm just having a bad day. So if you're measuring success based on how you feel, it's always going to change. So what is your definition of feeling better or feeling good is, I think that's what you've got to track down. And if you can get that, it goes a long way. And that's why, I mean, I love powerlifting from the idea that it is quantifiable. It is measurable.
Yep.
It is, I am now stronger than I was. Like, that is yes or no. It is black or white. It is effort over time equals outcome. Perfect. That doesn't necessarily mean, that doesn't reflect to feelings, because sometimes I will lift and I'll feel like shit when I'm lifting, but I'm stronger. So technically I've improved, but I still feel bad because feelings lie. So what is your definition of feeling better? And a lot of people don't know how to define that. So you've got to,
I asked the question,
figure that out too.
When do you want to be feeling better? And so we start looking at the conditions, and not just like the timeline, like how long from now do you want to feel better? And they go, well, 6 months from now I want to feel better. I go, oh, it's a lot different to I want to feel better today. But also, what activity are you doing when you feel better? Like, it's got to be, you know, that's that adding connection to it. So, well, I want to feel better when I'm deadlifting. I go, cool, all right. When you're deadlifting, how much? Because I guarantee you I'm going to be able to put a weight on the bar that'll make you feel horrible trying to deadlift it. So we're starting to, you know, yeah, absolutely.
And that's context is everything, right? And that's so one of the things I like is the same as you said, is like a timeline. I like people to give me 3 goals over the first sort of 6 weeks I train with them. Like, what are you aiming to get out of your time with me? I mean, you're spending money with me, albeit I probably should charge more. I charge very, very low money so I can work with vulnerable people. But I'm charging you money. You're spending time. What are we getting from this? And I like them to give me something that is, we're going to get that done easy. I like them to give me something that is going to be a bit complex. And then I want to give them something outlandish. I want to bench press an all-time world record. Great, you give me that, and that's what we will work for. But look at all these things we're doing along the way, and I think that's how I keep people moving even when it does get tough. Because, well, we've done all the other goals, that all-time world record is getting closer.
Everyone that works with me, they have a lifetime goal, like a, you know, big, hairy, audacious goal, like benching a world record or, you know, dunking a basketball at 49. No, I just come up with it. Maybe that's my next goal. I should learn how to dunk a basketball. That'd be fun. But we have a
that can only end well. Good idea.
Not. So we have a lifetime goal that you may never ever get to. And I got this off a Tim Minchin clip that he gave an address to UWA graduates, and he said, come up with a goal so massive that it'll take your whole life to get there, So by the time you actually achieve it, you won't notice that once you achieve a goal, there's nothing else to do. So I like having that one big goal that you're probably never ever quite going to get there, but having a crack at that your whole life, you're going to have some good stories to tell, and you're going to have a great time along the way.
And that's exactly the same sort of thing that we do, because it's amazing when you give yourself something that seems impossible, the things that you'll accomplish on the road to that impossible challenge are phenomenal. And sometimes you get that impossible goal. I mean, my goal was always to bench press 200. I thought that was never, ever in my world a possibility. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. And then I did more. I'm like, whoa, I did more. And it was one of those things. So we've reassessed, you know. So, and it is one of those things that if you give yourself a target that seems outlandish, what is it? Shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll end up in the stars. Like when you're working towards that, I mean, I still want the tangible, measurable stuff before then, so we can tick it off that we know. But that's more, if we're hitting these, we're on the path to where we're headed, which is ridiculous. So I'll let you know too, your
it's still recording.
camera is completely frozen, so I don't know whether it's still recording. Yeah, cool. Can I just quickly run to the bathroom? I just had a Pepsi Max.
Alex Hayes record of having to pause for toilet breaks, though.
How many times did he go?
Well, now, welcome back. Unfortunately, the last 90 minutes that we recorded didn't record. So we don't have access to it. Matt did, fortunately, come back from the bathroom. He had his Pepsi Max break, and we had a great chat. We talked about a bunch of stuff. But unfortunately, due to a few technical errors that I've been having with the software lately, it wasn't recorded. Really disappointed about this, but we'll get Matt back on, and we'll have another chat about the work that he does, because I think you probably guessed with that, just that introduction, the two of us can talk for a long time. We don't have a problem with that at all. What we did talk about a lot was the type of work Matt does, the importance of the work that he does, and how I want to replicate that here in Western Australia. Now, it's no secret that I love training really high-performing athletes, but what isn't known is the reason I do it is because I didn't have access to what young athletes have access to now. The knowledge base wasn't there. The systems weren't there. Didn't really have a space. We used to get kicked out of public gyms a lot, or commercial gyms a lot. The first time we actually had a dedicated powerlifting space here in WA was 2006 at the Muscle Pit. What I would like to extend now to the community is a space for the weird kids to train. You know, the people like me and Matt, the people that are a little bit unhinged, people like crazy rugby players that want to, you know, go to the top like Zoe Elliott. Weird little people in wheelchairs like Ben Wright, who can bench press more than almost anybody else on the planet. At the moment, there's no space for people like that to train. We have to fit in with everybody else. I want to provide a space here in Perth for people like that to have access to all the best knowledge, have access to the best coaching, have access to appropriate equipment. People who are neurodivergent or a bit spicy, you know, they're my kind of people. We always get on well. That's me. People with brain injuries or stroke survivors, that's also my community. They're my people. I get people like that, especially the ones that want to do something amazing following a stroke. Myself, I had a stroke. My strokes came at 39. I'm not happy sitting around for the next 40 years, not living life to the fullest. So I do that through lifting and through powerlifting. I want to share that with other people as well. And then the last category, or the first category, depending on what you look at it, is people like Ben Wright, para athletes that need a dedicated training space. For a lot of para sports at the moment, there is some training spaces available, but for para powerlifting, people like Ben or Nang have in the past been having to kind of squeeze into commercial gyms, modify equipment, and try and work around everybody else. If you go back and listen to the interview that I did with Ben a few months back, he said, and I try not to butcher this quote too much, but it really resonated. We're not the problem. The world is the problem. The world is built for other people. It's not built for us to fit. And so I really want there to be a space here in Perth that can handle having a bunch of wheelchair athletes training at the same time. So the ask, I guess, is I'm putting this out there out online to try and find somebody that can help me with this dream, somebody that will help me set up a space that we can train crazy people like me and Ben. So if you know anybody that shares this vision or has an interest in this area, please put them in touch with me. They can reach out through my Instagram, Australian Brain Coach, or find me on Facebook, Nathan Baxter. Let's chat. Let's make this happen. People deserve a cool training space where they feel like they belong, they fit in, that it's a low stress little sanctuary from the world where they can work on getting better. They can work on themselves and they can work on doing amazing things. So please send people my way. And in terms of Matt, we're going to get him back on. We'll have another chat, and hopefully that time it'll all work. So until then, hope you're enjoying the podcast, and we'll talk to you real soon.